Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Law. With me, Samson Ladi Anyanini. The law is your legal light and health law. So this afternoon, we want to educate you on what demonstrations or protests are in the face of the law. You have a right to demonstrate, you have a right to go on a procession or a protest or whatever you want to call it. But how can it be done lawfully? And at what point does it become unlawful and you may be found wanting? That's what we are treating this afternoon, lawful protests. And I'm very excited to be joined by Dennis Ajay-Jumo. He's head Law Plus, he's a private legal practitioner, and also Musa Ahmed, he's head Ahmed Legal Consults. We'll be right back. Right, you're welcome back. This is the law. So the NDC has rejected the election results as declared by the Electoral Commission or Commission Chairperson Jean Mensah. And so there have been nationwide protests or demonstrations. Just this Friday, the police arrested some 30 of the NDC supporters on the streets for burning tires and conducting themselves in some way that they say is not permitted by the law. Let's take a look at some of the scenes, sights and scenes, and we'll get back to deal with the education that you need with Dennis and Lawyer Ahmed.
On December 9, 2020, Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mrs. Jean Mensah, declared the presidential results, naming the sitting president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as the president-elect. But the presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, John Mahama, says his party will not accept the results of a flawed and rigged election.
The Electoral Commission of Ghana has never brought its credibility to this historic low at such a crucial moment of election results declaration. In fact, the litany of irregularities and blatant attempts at rigging for a candidate is obvious and most embarrassing. My colleagues and I in the NDC will not accept what we know to be a fraudulent outcome of these elections.
This decision has sparked demonstrations across the country, with some NDC protesters demanding the EC to reverse what they describe as a stolen verdict.
We want justice in this country, so we want the reality. They should reveal everything so that we all understand. If not, we will accept. We will not accept this. We will not accept this.
And before there can be peace, there should be justice. If you continue to say Nana Addo is the president-elect without doing the right thing, there will be no peace in this country. John Mahama will also be declared as president-elect.
We won the election. We are betting the election director so-called that the Mensah is bringing confusion for this country. So we are advising him to come out immediately and change his resource matter on the Friday. Just Friday. Otherwise, someone else will decide for our incoming president what we can do for him to sit in the chair.
Things, however, came to a head Thursday when the protesters clashed with the police in front of the EC headquarters. As the police fired rubber bullets to disperse the charged protesters, they also pelted stones, leading to the arrest of some protesters. Director of Operations of the Accra Region Police, ACP Kwesi Fori, said the police will deal ruthlessly with those who go contrary to the Public Order Act.
Per the public order dictate, you should notify the police of your intention to demonstrate. This was not done. They just came onto the street and behaving violently. We are in a democratic state and we will not permit this kind of behavior and attitude. And it face a criminal conduct, attacking people throwing stones against properties, removing adverts on the streets that people are paid for. I've noticed that, therefore, we are sending a strong message to these demonstrators and those of the like, that the police will deal ruthlessly.
Lawyer Francis Xavier Susu, who secured bail for the 26 protesters put before court, said the party is taking the necessary steps to ensure that party supporters follow due process in accordance with the Public Order Act.
As a very responsible political party, all steps are being taken to calm our ranks so that if anyone wants to embark on any such action, you can give the police notice in accordance with the Public Order Act, and also encouraging everyone to be very peaceful and protest.
There has been calls for the NDC to hold the series of protests and resort to the court, but the party intends to continue with their protest.
You're welcome back. Let me introduce my guest to you now. And as I mentioned earlier, in the studio is Dennis Ejejumo. He's a private legal practitioner. He's head of Law Plus. Thank you, Dennis, for making the time to join us.
Thanks, Samson.
Great. Also joining us via Zoom is a man who is known to this platform already, Musa Ahmed. He's a private legal practitioner and his head, Ahmed Legal Consults, joining us via Zoom. Thank you very much, Senior, for making time to join us.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, so can we start on this note and beginning with you, Dennis? As a citizen, if I wanted to go on a demonstration or whatever I call it, protest, is it a right I have? What is it?
Okay, thank you very much, Samson. First of all, there are several rights that is guaranteed under our Constitution. Apart from that, these are rights which are deemed to be inalienable rights. That by reason of a democratic dispensation, you have some. So you have a right to leave, a right of to freedom of association, among other rights. One of such rights that has been guaranteed under our Constitution is that fundamental right to demonstrate or to protest, or to join any procession of your choice. Now, since it's a right that is given, nobody can take that right away from you except through due process of the law that is given. And we need to point out the fact that the history of this country, through our customary law, there are instances in which various festivals are held to celebrate our right to culture, religious events are demonstrated. So the right to protest falls under this aspect, the bigger umbrella of expressing your religion, expressing your culture, and through that, public events are held. And historically, when the colonial master came, they realized that one of the powerful tools that is used, which connects us in terms of our communal living, is that of public events and public celebration. So they decided to pass laws that seek to give them the power to determine when we can hold any public event, be it demonstration, be it celebration. And they have always held the opinion that such celebration you need prior restraint so that we can act under a public order or public decency. But we realized that it was being used as a tool by the colonial government to basically deny the people from celebrating their cultural rights, among other factors. And so various laws were passed, in which it made it a requirement to seek prior approval or prior permit before you can demonstrate. And it even dovetails into from colonial regime to even our democratic regime. And writers have written about how our 1960 Constitution, the court deemed it as mere public declarations, and still people were not allowed to go ahead. In fact, the history, people have been arrested without seeking permission to exercise their inalienable right. Till 1993, in which the Supreme Court now ruled that all the laws that seek to put prior restraint, these were colonial legacies that we should not allow it to be on our statute books. And for that matter, Chief Justice Archer actually advised that the whole NRC, the 68, which was at that time the law which was prevailing, which was giving the police the power to grant permit before demonstration, was struck down as unconstitutional. And on that basis, a Public Order Act came into force. I must say that, Professor Kwashiga...
So you're saying that before the Public Order Act,
yes,
which came in, which we now use, yes, which you will explain to us later, one needed permission before you could go on a demonstration?
Yes.
Or do a protest?
Yes.
Okay.
And as I said, in terms of our... If you read on customary law, in terms of our rights as a people, as a community, we did not need permission to celebrate festivals. It's just a matter of the people realizing that it's time for us to celebrate Homowo. It's a period in which we have to hoot at hunger. We decided to get ourselves in the street. It was more traditionally defined. Okay, we did not need permission to do that. We did not need permission to celebrate Ramadan or any other festival. But one way of the colonial government to have absolute control was to now say that before you do it, because the colonial government did not understand our culture, did not understand as a people where we are. So he decided to put these things in place to ensure that before you can do any of these public events that he does not understand, give me permission. And he often did it at the back of the fact that I'm doing it because I need to ensure public order. Your festival might seek to disturb the public peace. So you need permission. Maybe at that time the Governor General wanted to sleep. You're going to have your celebration, call no Broman Komanda Pejani, would disturb the governor. So they decide to exercise a permission to grant it to you. And anybody who has permission, in terms, and whenever we are speaking at the law, I always want an instance where we can look into the context of our house and relate with it. How many times were we given permission to go out as children when your father do exercise that power, your mother exercise that power? And once you have decided to put permission, a grant of permission to do an act, it is not freedom. So if you have given permission, you need permission from the colonial government to celebrate your festival. It matters not what the gods are telling you. It is about the law that has put in place. And people have gone to jail in terms of these aspects. And for that matter, colonially, when we started out in terms of our communal spirit, we didn't need permission.
All right.
The colonial government came and brought what he called a white democracy, which required what they call a form of law and order.
Right.
And so they decided that based on laws, we need permission.
Yeah, and you have been referring to that as prior restraint.
Prior restraint.
Right. And you come to say that that actually takes away the right. It doesn't mean that you actually have a right.
Yes, in terms of our fundamental human rights, the court have insisted that for anybody to have freedom, they don't want an instance where certain individuals have prior restraint. And they know power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And for that matter, the court, in terms of its dispensation, will be willing that because it is the altar of justice, they prefer that they, if anything at all, come to court for the court to be able to analyze it and before it can grant any form of prior restraint.
Right.
But to grant it to an executive arm of government, the law has rebuked that.
All right. Now, you were about to refer to Professor Kwashiga.
Yes.
Was it Kwashiga you were going to refer to? Okay, so we'll come to that. But before we do so, were you going to refer to, is it Kumado or Kwashiga?
Kwashiga. It's Kwashiga who actually wrote an article on.
All right. Now, let's go to Musa Ahmed. And Article 21 says that all persons shall have the right to, and I'm referring to 21D, all persons shall have the right to freedom of assembly, including freedom to take part in processions and demonstrations. What does this mean?
Chapter 5 of our Constitution, 1992 Constitution, has several provisions, if you like, you call it entrenched human rights provisions to be enjoyed by all persons in Ghana. One of those rights is Article 21D, which allows a citizen of Ghana the freedom to join any association of his choice, provided it is lawful, to join any party of his choice, provided it is lawful, to take part in processions, demonstrations, and activities connected therewith, provided they are all lawful. So Article 21 is the, if you like, the provision in Chapter 5 of the Fundamental Human Rights which grants the right to all citizens to participate in the association, to participate in demonstrations, to take part in processions, and as my learned colleague has said, to celebrate your lawful customary practices like homo in the Muslim world, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, without any restraint whatsoever.
Right. When you say it's fundamental human rights, what does that mean?
Well, it is a right which is given like by nature. It's fundamental. It is prime. It is built in the individual as a right. It is not given by the state. It is as if it is given by nature.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes it fundamental. It is very important for every citizen to have that right. So it's fundamental.
Right. Dennis, you had also referred to it as being a fundamental human right.
Yeah.
What else can you say in addition to how Musa Ahmed defines it as fundamental human right, and then bringing the aspect that you wanted to speak about as to the article that has been written about the subject?
Okay, so in terms of many human rights scholars, and because our audience, one of the things that we always caution is not to step back into the classroom of law. So we understand that some of our viewers are...
You are a teacher, yes. So you can help us understand it better.
So when it comes about fundamental, and these are called into primary rights, basic, you have it by reason of being a human being, because of the fact that in terms of life, because we have realized that in terms of where we have come as a human, as people, if we do not allow individuals to enjoy these rights, the democracy that we belong to will collapse. So these fundamental human rights are not even limited to the country called Ghana. These rights are given to all human beings.
Right.
In that regard, the United Nations Charter on Human Rights guarantees it. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights guarantees it. All fundamental international instruments on rights guarantees it. Now, the beauty of our constitution even says that even if Article 21 had not even written it as a fundamental human right, based on Article 33.5, it says that all rights that are permissible in a modern democracy and enhance the human dignity is deemed to be part of it. And for that matter, it is basic right that every individual has by reason of fact that it is a human being. Okay. And it's quite interesting that you have to know the language of the law. The language of the law doesn't say all citizens of Ghana.
It says all persons.
All persons. It means that Nigerians in Ghana can have it, and what they did about NSAS now. Americans in Ghana, if they are not certified by the certain conduct of their president, can have a demonstration in Ghana. You have had a situation where Ghanaians demonstrated against activities that existed elsewhere. So those rights are not for even citizens.
Okay.
Those rights goes beyond citizens, for all citizens, all people, all individuals, no matter your creed, color, religion, or sexual orientation. Right. This is a right that you enjoy, and it's a basic right for every human being. Okay. So that's how I will explain it. But just to also explain further, you realize that the language of the law, there is what we call interdependence of these rights. So we know that before people sometimes assemble, they have to march to assembly. Understand it. When we are in basic school, in the morning, we all have to march from our classroom, go to assembly. After that, we march back to our classroom. So that's how I want people to understand the language that has been used, that the law allows you that in case you want to have the right, the freedom of assembly, i.e. a gathering of people. We also understand that when people have to gather, sometimes they must take part in processions. Universities, depending on the hall that you attended, people always went on processions, and people felt that this was a way of releasing tension. And sometimes processions does not need to be demonstrating against a certain activity. And that's why the law makes a distinction between processions and sometimes demonstration, because sometimes people can just process because they want to have fun. and which we say people take health walks to exercise. It is not to raise any challenge to anything, but to demonstrate means that there's an activity that you are seeking to challenge it. And for that matter, that's why the language of the law allows both procession and demonstration. So we can process, i.e. we are moving, and as part of the procession, we demonstrate. In another jurisdiction, they even talk about the language to be used in procession, and the law allows freedom of expression, because demonstrating and procession is also a form of expression. And for that matter, in procession, the law allows people to hold placards because the law guarantees expression. So in demonstrating, you have a freedom of assembly, so you can process, assemble, express yourself as you so deem. So that's these are things guaranteed for all persons.
So, Musa Ahmed, when can my exercise of this right become unlawful?
You see, every citizen, as Leonard friend has said, every person who lives in Ghana and enjoys these rights, inclusive of the right to demonstrate or to take part in procession, assembly, and things like that, is lawful when you exercise it within the limits of the law. For instance, you should not demonstrate and destroy people's properties. You should not wake up at midnight and start making noise in the name of demonstration. It's unlawful. You should not demonstrate and begin to attack other demonstrators or other persons who are exercising their rights. You should not demonstrate without notifying the police. You should not demonstrate when you have notified the police and the police have written back to you that they think you should change the date because their men are not available. That is also unlawful. These are the activities that there are more. But these are examples I can give for now.
You say that there's a requirement of notice before you demonstrate. And you suggest that you should not demonstrate if you gave the notice and the police told you that they will not be available or their men are busy. Doesn't the law say that if they disagree with you or something like that, they need to go to court to be able to stop you from demonstrating?
Yes, you know, there is a procedure in the law that when you have notified the police and they have written to you that they, for instance, will not be available due to some important functions they are performing elsewhere. They ask you to write back to the police to either agree with them or disagree. So this is the procedure. So if you have not followed the procedure, it will be unlawful to demonstrate. But when you have followed the procedure and the police, and you chose the option of not admitting what the police have written to you, then in that event, the police will have to go to court, or they may have to go to court and seek for an injunction. Some people agree with that aspect. Others agree. But for me, I have a position that going to court by S party is a problem because it tends to undermine the principle of natural justice, if you like. Without notifying the party, the other party, you go to court alone, you file processes, you tell the judge what you want to tell him or her, and then you are giving a restraining order. For me, I think it should be on notice, even if it takes 3 days. Maybe the law can be amended to require the period of time within which a party and the police will communicate regarding a demonstration. Let's say you want to demonstrate on Friday, and today is Monday. The law should require you to give the police maybe at least 3 days notice in writing. And then when the police disagree and they write back to you, then they have to go on notice. Because this So first party, I disagree with it.
Okay, right. Let me get to Dennis here. Presently, the law says you must give 5 days notice. 5 days notice of the intention, not less than 5 days notice of the intention. I wanted you to look at this. I wanted to ask a question first, but let's deal with this before we come there. He's talking about preferring that if the police disagree with you, then their resort, maybe, as we often see, would be to go to the court and get an injunction. And he's saying his preference is for it to be done, not to be done on the blind side of the ones who are demonstrating. I thought there has been a decision in that regard which determines how it should be done.
Yes, the High Court, presided by His Lordship Sir Dennis J, in the what we often call a Let My Vote Count Alliance case, which is the Republic versus the IGP, ex parte Gift Owari on that particular matter, in which when they wanted to demonstrate these raptures, getting injunction ex parte came up. And the court upheld that, first of all, the lower court, i.e. the district court and the circuit court, do not have the power to make a determination as to whether or not they will exercise a prior restraint or grant an injunction restraining a protestation, one. And the second one is that, based on the rules of court, they do not have a right to go ex parte to secure an injunction. What Sir Dennis also allowed, mentioned in terms of the judgment, was that he also appreciated that there might be urgency. And if they so want to do, there has to be the originating motion, which they will use to invoke the court jurisdiction. They can go for an ex parte order for a period of 10 days, but yes, still they have to fundamentally they have to put the people on notice. But that power to make a determination whether or not to grant it has been given to the court. And the court is the protector of the rights of the people. So we expect judges, when they come, should not be a rubber stamp of the process. And many a time we have had a situation where sometimes the police or the investigator will simply say, we are investigating or is in the public order, without giving certain indicators on affidavit to assist the court to make a decision.
So the preference that Musa Ahmed expresses is actually what the High Court has now said that he is referring to, without telling us that this is a particular case, where it says you can't go for it even in the lower courts, not a district court, not a circuit court, as they used to do, but you must go to the High Court. And when you go there too, you must also tell the people who are going to demonstrate or going to protest that you want to take the injunction against. But he mentioned something, that once you give the not less than 5 days notice and the police disagree or are unavailable and they write to you, what are you supposed to do?
If they write to you, the police cannot stop you by themselves. That's why the law requires, because the fundamental right has been given to you. So if the police wants to stop you, that's why they must go to court. It's not the other way around.
Okay.
Because we need to establish certain fundamental. One, no right is absolute. The right that has been given also has a procedure for enjoying that right. You have a right to vote, but before you can exercise your right to vote, you have a right to be registered to vote. You have a right to vote, but on the D-Day, if you decide not to vote, I'm sorry, you can't exercise that right to vote. In the same regard, you have a right to demonstrate. I do understand that there might be an intrinsic injustice in the part of the police trying to apply the law and trying to change the dates. But if you look at the language of the law, there's nowhere that the police is given the power to stop it. The police will seek to recommend, i.e. have a meeting in Georgia, because we do understand that in terms of demonstrating, certain people might commit some criminal offense. They might dirty the street, they might damage people. But we all have to understand that protestation and demonstration is part of the sacrifice that we have to make in our democracy. It's in this regard that the law goes ahead to define the nature of the event. Where are you having it? State the time, state the date, so that some of us who might be using that street can be advised that demonstration will be taking place on this street, so use the other street. And so once we have been able to establish that no right is absolute, there's a procedure for you to enjoy certain rights. And one of such a procedure to enjoy certain rights in relation to a right to demonstrate and protest is the Public Order Act. And the goal of the Public Order Act is to ensure orderliness in your quest of exercising your demonstration. And if you realize, most political parties or most people who organize democracy, apart from the police, they themselves put security measures among themselves. So if you see the NDC demonstration in Kumasi today, you see that the party members have organized themselves and they are demonstrating. But when you realize what happened the last time, you could clearly see that it was not properly organized, because the law knows that certain people can go off. We need people to hold accountable in case you go and damage certain people's property. We have had situations in which you are driving or you park your car, somebody knocks your car, you come and you don't know who to hold accountable. So it's also in the interest of other people for us to know who are the organizers, who can we hold on to, so that in case you damage my car in the course of it, I know who to hold accountable.
All right.
So you have a right, but it's not a blind right.
Right.
We need to have a named right. I.e., we know those individuals who are involved that are enjoying it.
Right. So, Musa Ahmed, the law says that the notification shall be submitted to a police officer not below the rank of assistant superintendent of police or other police officer responsible for the nearest police station to the location of the proposed special event. So a demonstration here will be a special event. And all you need is to take the notice to the police station nearest to you. And the officer you must give to must be somebody who is not below the rank of assistant superintendent. And the law says, where you have notified the police and they have reasonable grounds to believe that the demonstration you are going to hold may lead to violence, lead to danger, endanger public defense, endanger public order, public safety, public health, or the running of essential services, or violate the rights and freedoms of other persons, then they may request the organizers to postpone the demonstration to another date or relocate, as in change their locations. If they write to you to inform you that you have within 48 hours to let them know whether you will comply or you will not comply. It is when you inform them that you are not complying that, as you said earlier, they will go to a court and then justify why they should get an injunction. And now, as we know, they must go to the High Court and they should not go on your blind side as they used to do. So the question is, in the end, is this not doing the same thing as the permission thing? If the police is supposed to say, my demonstration may lead to violence, it may endanger public defense, public order, public safety, public health, running of essential services, or it may violate the rights and freedoms of other persons, and for that reason, I should either postpone it or relocate it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, for me, I disagree with the aspect where the police will have that reasonable belief or suspicion. Because you see, when you start using reasonable suspicion, you are going into the realm of criminality. This one, we are talking about someone's fundamental human rights to demonstrate, which is guaranteed in the Constitution. The police should not have that right to determine whether or not what you are going to do, there is the suspicion that you commit offenses. The law has built the nature of the offenses that may be committed and punishment thereof. So I don't see why the police should come in again. That ought to be determined by a high court. Maybe the law ought to have said that the police in that event where the demonstrators have refused to comply with any directive from the police should invite them within 48 hours, sit with them, and discuss the possibility of organizing the demonstration or procession in such a way that harm may not be caused to other lawful citizens or persons living within the limits of the demonstration or within the purview of the demonstration. For me, I disagree entirely with the right of the police or that discretion which is vested in them to decide whether a demonstration, because you see, this may be playing into the hands of politicians and the powerful people in our society. There shouldn't be that right vested in the police. If any at all, I would prefer the court to determine that right and not the police. Because they always find excuses for you. If it is a weekend and most of their men have gone to funerals or any other function, they will tell you, of course, that you don't have the right to demonstrate. Okay. And to me, that would be limiting the right, the fundamental right vested in the individual citizen or person to demonstrate or exercise his fundamental rights.
So is the concern you have not cured by the same law where it says you are only to give notice, you are not supposed to seek permission, and if they tell you that you should relocate it, postpone it or something, and you don't agree, they do not have a right to stop you. They can only stop you by going to court and getting a court to give them an order of injunction that will actually stop you.
Well, I don't think it has been cured because, you see, we have all seen it. They give you the notice, they tell you they cannot allow you to go on the demonstration because, ABCD is not available. Okay? Now, the aspect which says that you are not bound by it, to me, is just, semantics. Or if you like, a statement, a mere statement. Because we have seen situations where the police go with batons and sticks, guns, they beat the demonstrators. For instance, you saw the advert, the advert you put across before the commencement of this program. The police who spoke, the officer who spoke said that the police are going to deal with anybody who goes against the Public Order Act. And I'm sure he was citing the provision relating to notice to the police. Mm-hmm. You don't use such words or expressions that will deal with the demonstrators. Mind you, they are demonstrators, they are citizens of Ghana, they are persons like you. Some of them may be your family members. For instance, if the wife was involved in a demonstration, will he attack the wife? So you don't use such strong language against persons who are exercising their rights. So for me, back to your question, the provision does not negate the point I made.
All right. Dennis, so sometimes these expressions must be immediate, must be spontaneous. So if I'm required to give at least 5 days notice, does that mean I cannot just get up anytime something is happening to me today and I decide that this very moment I am calling on all other people to join me to express ourselves and express our protest? I can't do that?
By reason of how the law has been structured, you cannot do that. And that is the more reason why some of us tend to agree with Professor Kwashiga in his article when he raises that what the mischief that we are seeking to cure with the decision that the Supreme Court came up with has now been disguised. These are my own words. Has now been disguised in the manner in which there is an intrinsic injustice or baton in the hand of a police officer who seeks not to understand fundamental human rights or not to allow people to enjoy their fundamental human rights. Now, if you look at the language of the court in terms of how it treated it, it wanted a high level of freedom because they know that these are your rights, enjoy it, but there are punishments relating to it in case you violate other people, the public order or public decency. But anytime we seek to give that's why I said there's an intrinsic injustice in terms of the position of the law that has been done. An instance where the police will have the right to determine, they have the discretion to say what amounts to reasonable grounds. Mm-hmm. Okay, in terms of public order, public decency, national security, because these are languages that we have heard in court over time. Okay, and for that matter, with regards to that step that for which a person can exercise the right, it can be used as a form of abuse. That is the more reason why the law still insists for the police to proceed to court in case they want it, so that the judge can make and ascertain how people are supposed to enjoy these rights in case they want to put a restraint on it. So the law, that's how the law has been structured. However, although I disagree with the law still has to be obeyed. Okay, and we think that it's high time that this is an opportunity for us to look at the law again and say that there is an inherent flaw in the law which does not allow me to have a right to process, a right to demonstrate on reason that somebody who exercises a discretion says that it's in the national interest, because some of the demonstration, the location is very important for demonstration to happen. So if you say that by reason of the location, which I want to have an effect, because these are permissible inconveniences we have to suffer in the democracy, so that one day we will not be taken for a ride. I am demonstrating on a matter that involves Greater Accra. You say to me, oh no, relocate your demonstration to Koforidia because we think Greater Accra in Christmas, there's a lot of traffic on the road, and for that matter, we will have a lot of congestion, inconveniences. At the end of the day, what effect will I have if the demonstration relate to matters that affect Greater Accra? So that's one reason why we think that if there's an instance where the ethos of human rights have to be taught and go through a lot of retraining so that the jurisprudence and the mentality of police officers, mentality of judges who make a determination of matters affecting human rights will be understood that in all of it, although on that said day, I was in traffic, it was huge inconvenience. I was not happy about how the whole thing went. But that notwithstanding, that's their fundamental human right. So it has to be organized in the context of the law. But we need to look at the law again. It's an opportunity for us to look at the law again. Okay. Because how the law has been structured, you cannot have a consistent demonstration for more than a day. Because the law actually says that you have to give us a commencement time. You have to give us a closing time.
And you have to tell us the route.
The route that you'll be using. And we have had a situation in this country where people were whipped when they change the routes. And it's all in line with the public order. I also understand the element of public order that has to go with it. But we have a situation, we don't want a system, the laws are sometimes done because human beings by our nature and nature have a propensity to disobey the law. And we have had a situation where police officers violate the law. We know how the law treats them because it's at their discretion to prosecute.
Right.
So I get the point. One, let's clearly establish the fact no right is absolute. We have to go in the context of the law. The Public Order Act has given parameters with which you have to go. There are intrinsic problems with the law. Can we use this opportunity to correct it before it's subject to abuse?
All right. Musa Ahmed, the police issued a statement on the 17th of December announcing to us that they had arrested 26 persons for, it titled the police arrest 26 Electoral Commission protesters. And among other things, it's, suggested that people need to obey the Public Order Act by giving them the notification that they have to give according to law. Otherwise, what they do will be unlawful, and they would also not countenance that. My question again is, why can't we do as we see elsewhere? For example, we have seen some places in America, something happens this moment and the people start a protest or a demonstration that very moment. They don't have to notify anybody, they just start. And the police have an obligation to protect them. They don't come whipping them and telling them that you should have given us notice, you didn't give us notice.
Ideally, that should be the situation. But you see, our system is different. Unfortunately, most of our people do not understand the law or do not know the law. We have a whole unit of, what do we call it? The civic department that deals with educating persons. What is the full name?
NCC.
NCC, yes. I don't know whether they are doing their work or they are not doing their work. They should be responsible for educating the people on the law. They are not doing it. It is not the duty of the police to educate the citizen or persons who are subject to the law as to what the law is. It is a responsibility of the National Commission on Civic Education. And we need to prompt them to do it. You see, if they do it, people will understand the law very much, and then they will obey the law. Now, my learned colleague has stated that maybe this is the time for us to look at the weaknesses in the law and correct it before it becomes too late. I agree with him. We have to do it, but we need to empower the NCC, the more, so that they will educate the people on the Public Order Act. They should educate them on their rights to exercise their freedoms as enshrined in the Constitution, so that as citizens, we can enjoy our freedom without any interference from the executive, the legislature, or any other institution or person. Because those rights, as I keep saying, they are fundamental. And if you restrain persons from exercising their fundamental rights, it will get to a boiling point, and when it explodes, you may not be able to contain it. Coming back to your question, yes, the police, I think they are understaffed. We need to also look at it. Ideally, people should be able to do their demonstration immediately when the need arises. But because of limitations, as I have indicated, the police are understaffed. The ratio as against the population that we should have, I think, is limited. We need to recruit more police so that in future, when the law is amended, the freedoms and rights can be enjoyed immediately without any notification to the police to have to wait for 5 days, respond in 48 hours, and then if you don't do so, the police goes to court. All these things are also causing enormous, pressure on the police.
Yeah. And as we discover, right after the Electoral Commission made its declaration with the NDC rejected, the majority of the protests or demonstrations we have seen, as the police have made us understand, have been without notice. But you can tell that the police will not be able to arrest 1,000 people or more than 1,000 people who are demonstrating. So they have other option than to go and provide protection, even though they have not applied or they have not brought the notification.
That is so. You see, that tells you that the notification aspect is not necessary. For me, it is not necessary. And as my learned colleague has said, we should take the opportunity now and remove the aspect of notification. I don't even see why they should put in notification there. It is the duty of the police to ensure that every demonstration, as it happens, is organized. They must be there because they are paid to do their work. They must be there. The police are working.
Now then it's like the law actually says if you fail to notify the police, you are contravening the law, and that is an offense for which you can be punished. If you fail to inform the police of your unwillingness to comply with their request when they receive the notification and they want you to relocate, they want you to postpone the date or something like that, and you don't write back to them within 48 hours to tell them that you are unwilling to comply, that one too, you are doing what? You are contravening the law, and it's a criminal offense. Again, it says if you take part in the demonstration knowing that that demonstration, no notice has been given to the police, you are also doing wrong thing and you can be punished. And then if there's damage that occurs, property is damaged or something, the organizers or whoever is arrested will be made to pay for it. Can we say the notification is not necessary when the law actually says without the notification, you are committing a criminal offense?
I think the discussion is in twofold. We are looking at what the law says.
Right.
And what the law ought to have said. So what the law says, I think basically we all understand it. What our discussion now goes beyond that, and which is allowed because when we are discussing the law in the context of the progress of the society, we have the right to make suggestions as in what the law ought to have been made. Reform. Now, I disagree with the position with regard. I will disagree on the point of the length of the notice, but at least notification have to go. And I'm saying this because we live in a country in which we have not been able to distinguish between the right to demonstrate and rioting. In terms of our history, we have, for us to gain the necessary attention, we have many a time demonstration which ended up in rioting. And rioting is an offense. So there has to be a double-edged sword where we need to teach our people that there is a distinction between demonstrating and rioting. And for that matter, if you decide carrying stones, throwing of stones, burning of ties, you are entering the element of rioting, which is criminal, and it's not your fundamental. You don't have a fundamental human right to riot. You have a right to demonstrate. So we need to make that distinction, that there's a distinction between rioting and demonstrating, and teach our members that if you go on the path of throwing stones, you have entered the arena of rioting. If you go on the path of burning ties, you have entered the arena of rioting. However, if you carry your placard, you are demonstrating. If you say words, you sing songs, you are demonstrating, so that it will be orderly in that regard. So I think that we need to make that distinction between the rioting aspect and the demonstrating aspect. And the rioting carries an offense. Now, the other one that we also have to look at, the general question about the funding of the police. How many, in terms of managing of crowd, how many equipments have we bought for the police? So in that regard, the police have a limit, because as a society, when the executive arm of government wants things to be done, it gets done. There's a serious challenge in terms of logistics for the police. So the police realize that in the midst of these logistical challenges, the only way I can get it done is to give a warning shot where everybody disperses. So it is important that as we are looking at the law, as we are saying that it can be subject to abuse, have we looked about the logistical things that we have given to the police? And the bigger issue about notification is because of logistics. Because if you give me notification and I'm able to look at my number of people, then I can be able to plan for it. Because with the logistical challenges, if we do not allow the police to be giving notification, at least that the event will be happening, and we allow people to spontaneous demonstrate, which in terms of international human rights, among other, spontaneous demonstration is also part of it. Okay. However, within our system of systemic challenges, I think that a blanket right to demonstrate without at least given like 24 hours or 8 hours, some form of notification to the police officer that area, it will be very difficult because they have a challenge of
now, Musa Ahmed, you seem to have preferred that the notice should take not more than 3 days, or at least 3 days. Dennis is also now beating it down. We know it's 5 days. Dennis is now also beating it down to 48 hours or even less. Presently, as we have it, if you don't do what has to be done and the police take you to court, the organizers and law-breaking demonstrators are going to be made to pay for damage that they have caused, and then they can pay up to 3,000 Ghana cedis, or in addition to that fine, they may spend up to 1 year in jail. I have a right. You say it's a fundamental human right I'm expressing, and yet I can go to jail for 1 year, and in addition to that, I may pay 3,000, and if some damage occurred, I could be made to pay for that damage. What kind of fundamental human right is this?
Well, as I told you earlier, every right has a limit. The fact that you have a right to demonstrate doesn't mean you have a right to go on rioting, for instance. And as Leonard's colleague said, there has to be a distinction between rioting and demonstrating. So if in the course of exercising your right, you add the commission of an offense, of course, then you must be responsible for your actions.
Right.
To that extent, the law will seek you and punish you for that. But if you demonstrate without adding any commission of an offense, no police officer has the right to arrest you and put you before the court. Because what will be the charge?
Right.
There will be no charge.
Okay.
Because the law has not said that if you demonstrate, you should be punished.
All right.
No. It is when you demonstrate and add lawful activities against the law that you would be punished for that.
Okay, you mean when you demonstrate and do unlawful activities?
That's right.
Yes, in some 30 seconds, what will be your final words and advice to people who want to go on a demonstration? And Dennis would say something to that effect.
Okay. My advice.
Let's hear Musa Ahmed first.
My advice to them is that as it is now, we have a law, and not until Parliament has amended the law, they should, as much as possible, work in accordance with it. They should seek a notification they should comply with the rules as contained in the law so that we can all live in a society of law and order.
All right. Thank you very much, Musa Ahmed. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. He is out of the country and still made time to join us. Yes, Dennis.
Okay, but my advice would be threefold. First, to the demonstrators, that they have a right to demonstrate and not to riot. So no need for stones or clubs to deal with that regard. Secondly, my advice to the police is that this is time for the police to engage, because we have moved from police force to police service. And police as a service is a service to the Ghanaian who is the customer. And for that matter, it is important that the police have to engage the political leaders of the political party that is demonstrating. And I believe strongly that once they engages them, it will better. And the last aspect is that the Attorney General has a discretion to prosecute. He can decide to prosecute or not to prosecute. And I think that in terms of these times, I would prefer a higher level of engagement and not a blanket prosecution of every individual who is arrested for engaging it. Because at the end of the day, these are people who are enjoying their fundamental human rights. So I believe in all of it, let's have a dialogue and we can make progress from there.
Thank you so very much. So it is important to cooperate with the police because you need them to maintain order. And don't forget that if there is a breach of the law, including hitting the streets without the notification, or if there be damage to property during the demonstration, organizers will suffer alone or along with the law-breaking demonstrators. And as I said, you could go to jail for up to a year, or in addition to that, you could be paying 3,000 Ghana cedis, or if damage has occurred, you have hit people's cars or something, pelted stones, you will also pay for that damage. We can demonstrate lawfully, and that's how it ought to be. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Thank you for your company. My guests have been Dennis J. Jomo, Head, Law Plus, and Musa Ahmed, Head, Ahmed Legal Consult. This has been The Law. It's your legal light and health law.